Thank you. I think it is summarizing basically what we propose to do there. Just to put it in perspective, what we actually did, and it is operating right now, is we build an internet platform that is a marketplace where investors and projects can meet and create cooperations. Now, I invite each and every one of you to ask us how to do it from either side of this equation. We have put together a team of people that are experts in what they do. I'd like to introduce them. Ziv Kenan here. He's an attorney, but that's all he does with us. He's the CTO of the company. He is an expert in cryptocurrencies. He built the platform that we're working on. And you're welcome at the end of this or any time during the GSS meeting to approach Ziv and ask him any question you have in mind. The second person is Ayal. Stand up, please. Ayal is also an attorney. I'm sorry about that. But, Ayal, you can stand up so people see you. I invite you to contact Ayal and take his card and exchange ideas with him. Ayal is in charge of the deal flow part of this equation, meaning that if you have a project, and many of you here have projects that are seeking funds, he is the person to talk to and put it, and will find the right way together with you to create this model work. Thank you, Ayal.
Excellent. We're going to do questions in a little bit. Okay. Oh, is that okay?
I'm fine. Just okay. Better together. That's all.
Okay.
It's an open.
We're dancing.
Source system, and I appreciate what you said before.
Okay. So now, Jeff, I don't know. Maybe everyone in here. I just met you last night. Maybe everyone knows you, but probably not. Could you give a brief summary on why we should listen to you about this issue we've asked you to speak to? Okay. Called Critical Success Factors here, okay, for financing.
I'll try to make a case. I like to think that one of the reasons why people should listen to me is that the impact investing space, so to speak, is a lot of people are newcomers to it. My current hat I'm wearing, I'm part of the SOCAP group. We're part of a group of investors that bought the SOCAP conference, which really, I think, put it on my radar, put impact investing on literally tens of thousands of people's radar since it started about 11 or 12 years ago out in San Francisco. And one of the things about it is that at that initial SOCAP in 2007, I think it was, I had this same approach going on and to the broken economic model about why, this is before the SDGs existed, but we all instinctively knew the world was broken, and we all knew there is enough money to solve the problems out here. I'm thrilled that there's a vocabulary now to walk around. SDG is a great taxonomy from which to say, great, here's 17 buckets of problems. The reason why you should listen to me is that I'm much more pissed off than most people that we haven't solved these problems yet. And I'm the person who's been on stages for the past 12 years having the same conversation about what is so broken in the standard model that, you know, one of the things I've come up to speed only recently, YKCenter is new to me. And so I've been reading a lot of the stuff that Dr. Kahane has done, and one of the things, this externalities thing is the cornerstone of it. And you've all probably seen it, if not as an externality, you've seen it as alternative bottom lines. ESSEC might be ESG, environmental social governance. You might have global national happiness versus global national product and all of those things, but in various different guises, it's all the same issue, right? We're so good at capturing economic and financial returns. We can look and someone gives you a 5% yield. We know it's a one-dimensional picture of it, but we do know if that comes off of an oil refinery versus comes off of a cancer-curing company, they're different. 5%, the yield doesn't capture the full picture. And one thing that we have been terrible at in the decade plus that I've been doing and before is trying to actually get the other dimensions of it. Right now, I think what you saw, I couldn't see it, but they talked about the four-dimensional SDG marketplace. That's the kind, you need to give investors a better picture, and one of the problems is that there's no industry standard for it. But start somewhere, right? Just let someone know that the single bottom line approach, the financial return is not the full picture. Whether you call it environmental, social, consciousness? Is that consciousness?
Consumer consciousness.
Consciousness, governance. I've seen, listen, the conference, SOCAP's out in San Francisco. They're up to about 11 bottom lines, including some crazy ass stuff like spiritual and all of this, but they're all legit in the sense that there are other currencies going on, and until you raise the visibility of those currencies, you're really not going to get the actual information into the hands of what we really want, the people who have the trillions of dollars to apply to the SDG problems.
Excellent.
So,
Okay. All right, Andy. So Andy, you're one of the new partners with YKCenter. You represent Coalition of Green Capital. Maybe you should say why people should listen to you and why you're partnering with YKCenter.
So the only reason you should listen to me is if what I say makes sense, if it resonates, period. I can tell you a little bit about the Coalition for Green Capital and what we do. And I'll do that, but I'm going to save it for a moment so I can take the fresh airwaves to make the bigger, more exciting point. And you can decide if it makes sense and if you should listen. So the first thing is to thank everyone for what comes before, because it's all incredibly important and exciting. And I've spent most of my life trying to change governments, and to great effect, actually. In this case, though, I don't have the patience or the confidence for that. I'm a citizen of the United States of America. Any wonder why I've lost some faith in the capacity of governments to deliver? So what the Coalition for Green Capital is about in terms of creating new options, it's about unleashing finance flows. The bad news is that money is hungry. That's in part why we are where we are, right? The good news is that money is hungry. So if we can turn it in the right direction, we can go from billions to trillions. $27 trillion investment gap that lies between here and the 2-degree target on the schedules that we've laid out. We will not get there with public funding. We will not get there with development finance institution funding. We have to unleash private markets. We have to understand what are the barriers, how do we de-risk, how do we make it profitable and easy for private investment, for all of this hungry money, of which there is a ton, to find its target. That's what a green investment bank can do, and that's our point of intersection with SDG-Market right there. If we can look at, here are the projects, the pipeline, here's the money, the piles of money that are out there, and in between, they're not connecting. Green investment banks are locally embedded institutions that work to identify and resolve barriers, be it by de-risking or being first mover in a market and demonstrating, so the project pipeline can better connect with the capital sources. And green investment banks are dynamic institutions. Think of them as prayer wheels. Once they teach the market how to play in various spaces, they can move on to the next barrier. So they're really an accelerator function to open up markets. And if you think about the power of a river, I see this river of money, which is not my field at all, which is why I didn't start with it, because then you wouldn't have listened to me. This river flowing in a certain direction, and it needs to be released and redirected to flow where we want it to. Not because it's a good thing to do or a socially responsible thing to do, but because it's a profitable thing to do. And that's how we'll bring markets to scale quite quickly. And the Coalition for Green Capital is a nonprofit. We're based in the US. We work domestically to create green investment banks. There's one here, probably the most successful in New York State. There's one in Connecticut. There are also some green investment banks distributed internationally. There's a long story there, which we don't have time to go into right now. But our partnership with SDG-Market is to place green investment banks and or the projects that they bring forward or the project pipeline that they are trying to access into the SDG-Market platform so we can communicate and share capacity. It's also to share networking and information and capital sources and de-risking strategies to build a more powerful engagement. And there's a lot more to say, but I think I'll just leave it there.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to take 2 or 3 questions. And so you're going to move the microphone up there, and if anyone, 2 or 3 questions. If you have a question, I'm handing you my microphone. And then we're moving to another panel, which includes a handful of projects that are already part of the market.
Thank you. Well, thanks for hosting the lunch. I love what everyone's saying. I work in socially responsible investing for an independent RIA. And I've seen a number of models, and I think, in fact, Jeff, maybe you were at Mission Markets a while ago, if I remember.
I was.
So my question is, you often hear if you build it, they will come. So I just wonder how you will get people to come.
Other than buying lunch, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning Mission Markets. It's one of my most spectacular failures of my serial entrepreneurship that I've done. That one was the example. The model that we had there was very simple. We were the SDG marketplace about 6 or 7 years ago, and we did believe that if we build it, they will come, because it just made so much sense that the actual we're not calling it SDG, an impact investment platform was something everybody needed. So we did. We built it. We actually built a platform. We got a handful of deals on there. And the problem that we had, and this problem obviously persists, and it's something that I think I can be helpful in some of the challenges that the current SDG marketplace might fit. The money isn't ready to go in there yet. And when I complain about the fact that we can't give them a full 4-dimensional picture of what every investment looks like on the platform, that is one of the problems there. But the truth is, if you really want to be able to have the vocabulary that's going to have the guys writing and gals writing the trillion-dollar checks that are going to make this possible, we can't just build it. You have to go ahead and prime the pump. You have to go ahead and have the conversations with the people that you know in the public sector side. And of course, as Professor Kahane has pointed out, you look at the pension funds and the insurance companies, because they're the ones that are already, they're sold on it. There's a theory that says that a long enough time horizon, everybody's an impact investor, right? Because look at the insurance companies. They're the ones, they play the tape forward at the current way. We're 20 feet underwater where we speak right now. So that's where you start. And the trick is, I think, that you do need these platforms. They're a necessary part of it. But if you build it and just think people are going to come to it organically, you're going to end up actually in the same sad boat that me, and by the way, about 25 other similar platforms that I've watched come and go in the space have gone. What you need, you got to prime the pump, get the people who are already sold on what this impact investing is about and how real the SDG issue is. And you'll find that since most people aren't that brave, if you have a proof of concept and you have the big money's in there, people love to follow on. It's been one of the disappointing things about the impact investing space is that we're not really that brave. We like to pretend that we are, but we're not. And when it comes to cutting the check, you're going to find that the only way you're actually going to get it to happen is not just by building a technology platform. Technology is only the necessary but not sufficient. You need to get the buy-in of the big bucks.
Okay, next question.
Hi. There's so many tools out there to measure impact, so many. Which one is the one that you think will actually be used by the most? And what relationship do you have with the 17 SDG asset management?
Well, I just want to say one short thing, because Mr. Kahane, Professor Kahane is going to answer you, but on the next panel here, there will be direct answers to your question from this podium.
Well, the idea really is to change the metrics. We are fighting on the metrics. That's one thing. The second thing that we are having a problem with is that some legal points of view, and especially in the United States. In 2012, I participated in the signatory ceremony of the Sustainable Insurance Plan. And 50% of all the money of the pension plans really signed to that treaty. And in Rio. However, the American companies did not. And the American companies did not because of what they felt is their fiduciary liability. The law in most countries, in most states in the United States, force the company to work for profit and financial profit. And if they won't do that, they are afraid that they'll be sued. The second thing is that if you think in the terms of the 4 dimensions, you know that many industries are really failing industries in the long term. For example, all those that are burning oil and fossil fuels. And this is 50% of the market. So companies say, well, pension funds say, well, how can I not invest part of the money in those businesses? But they are not managing their own money. They are managing our money. So we have to put a pressure that we like them to invest in impact investments, in the SDG investments. That's it. That's what we should do. So, and again, we have to define the rules. The rules can be defined. We have to quantify things, and that's what we are trying to do now.
So you addressed the rules we need to change in the U.S., but what...
worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide. But Katzman, so Yehuda Katzman, your specific question about how we're going to track, we have a solution that's going to be on the stage here in the next panel.
Can I make a comment? In the United States, in 35 states, there's a new law called the Benefit Corporation. It's an incorporation status that aids any company who's scared of their shareholders, and they can actually reincorporate under that law, under that incorporation status, and have no fear of their shareholders.
We're fully aware of that, of course, and as I said before, in the next panel, which will be very shortly, you will hear about cooperation that we've done, especially for that purpose, for measuring the externalities, quantify it.
You know, specifically to your question about what about the systems that have been done time and time again to try to capture those metrics. There are a lot of good systems out there. Mission Markets 5 years ago used what was called the IRIS taxonomy that came out of Gears and Rockefeller. And my point is this, I would love to, and people in this room can help make this happen. It's not really about picking the best standard. It's just making a standard. I'd love to, the beauty of the SDGs is not that it's the best taxonomy of the world's problems. It's the one that's gotten an amazing amount of buy-in from the private and the public sectors. I was working at the UN when Kofi Annan, who was amazing to work for, and he was doing the MDGs, right? Nobody really cared. We've repackaged them, and this time around, it's got traction. So what I'd love to do is take any of the ones that are there, because there's so many viable models out there. If we could get the same level of adoption and have the same basically have a standard out there, so we're having the same conversation, working off the same platform, I think we'd be like 90% of the way there. You just got to pick something, and if it's done, even if it's not the best one, pick one that's good and just make it better, iterate it, and hopefully if version 1 isn't any good, we'll get there. But first, you got to have the standard to work from.
Okay, what?
I'll just really quickly add that you can do that on a project basis, and you can also do it on a fund or on a facility basis. So with the Green Investment Bank model, you can bring good standards, and there are different good standards, to the fund level. So all projects moving through a green bank, which is based nationally or regionally, would meet those metrics.
Thank you so much for this panel. I'm Donna Katzman, the CEO of Shared Interest. And for 24 years, we've been doing what is now called impact investing in Southern Africa. My question is for the Kahanes, for the YKCenter. We're talking about unlocking private capital to help achieve the SDGs. And private capital in many buckets, whether it's green development banks, pension funds, insurance companies, or in our case, banks themselves, private banks themselves. I'm wondering if the Kahane Center, which has this wonderful capacity to look at things from a huge scale and get us out of our silos, whether the YKCenter is perhaps thinking about looking at unlocking private capital from different sectors, different kinds of instruments to help it flow specifically achieve the SDGs?
Yeah, for sure. But most of the long-term capital in the world comes from pension plans. And this is the major source. And then there are the public sources. The public sources, like social security programs. In those countries where you have funded social security programs, the United States doesn't have this, then they create a lot of savings. In those countries that you don't have social security systems, it's a tremendous opportunity to start it, because that's a way a country can do something that individuals cannot do. We cannot lift ourselves off the ground by pulling the bootstraps, but a country can do that. And many countries have done that after the Second World War to rehabilitate their economies. The same instruments can be used. There are some beautiful examples for that, and it can be done to unleash private money on a small scale, on a large scale, private money through the retirement system, and on a large scale, public money from the social security system, because these are long terms.
And especially places that have a lot of millennials, Asia and Africa, that's a big vehicle, because they're not going to need they're not going to need it for a few years.
I'm going to add to that if
Yep.
I can. So probably the proof of concept of the Green Investment Bank model that's happening now in developing countries writ large is in Southern Africa through the DBSA based in South Africa. We're in process creating a new Green Investment Bank on the model of a climate finance facility, directly addressing your question. And the model there will have private capital in at the fund level. It will likely be PIC that helps to capitalize that alongside DBSA and the Green Climate Fund. And then the model is working with each of the major commercial banks in South Africa and in the other RAN-based economies in the Southern Africa region to co-finance at the project level and crowd in private investment in that way as well. So it would be great to connect with you after, given that specific South African focus.